In the quiet village of Taraka, where the river danced under the moonlight and the winds carried stories from the ancestors, something extraordinary happened. On a night when the sky turned silver and the moon hid behind a mysterious eclipse, a baby girl was born. The villagers gathered under the baobab tree, eyes wide with wonder. "She is no ordinary child," they whispered, watching the infant in her father's arms. "Look at her eyes. They glow like moonlight." The child's name was Liona. Her tiny eyes shimmered with a soft silver hue that seemed to hold secrets from another world. Even as a newborn, her presence felt magical. The elders murmured that the spirits had kissed her forehead the moment she entered the world. Her father, Oberon, a kind man known for crafting the finest clay pots in the land, held her close with trembling hands. Tears rolled down his cheeks, not of sadness, but of a love so deep it shook his soul. "You, my little moonflower," he said in a soft voice, "will see beauty even in the darkest corners. You will light up places where others see only shadows." But joy and sorrow walked hand in hand that night. Leona's mother, Sarima, a gentle woman with eyes like rain, did not survive the birth. She took her last breath as her daughter cried for the first time. Oberon kissed Sarima's forehead, whispering goodbye, and then looked down at his daughter with a trembling smile. Though his heart broke, he believed that Sarima had poured all her love, her grace, and her kindness into Liona before leaving the world. As Liona grew, everyone in Taraka felt there was something special about her. Birds would gather on her windowsill, flowers seemed to bloom where she stepped. Even the grumpy elders found themselves smiling in her presence. Her laughter was like music, soft and calming, and her touch could soothe even the most restless soul. The villagers often said that her mother's spirit walked with her, guiding her steps and watching over her like a moon that never faded. Liona didn't speak much, but when she did, her words carried weight. She would point at the sunset and say, "The sky is singing today," and everyone would pause and listen, as if they too could hear the melody. Oberon watched his daughter blossom and felt both pride and fear. He knew that such light often attracts both wonder and jealousy, but for now, he held on to hope, unaware that dark clouds were slowly creeping toward their peaceful world, ready to test everything he held dear. As the seasons passed, little Leona bloomed into a graceful young girl, just as her father had hoped. Her silver eyes still held that quiet light, like the moon resting gently on the river. Her voice was soft, her heart even softer, and everyone in Taraka felt at peace around her. She helped elders cross the path, fed hungry animals, and shared whatever she had with those in need. Her laughter was like wind chimes in the evening breeze, and her presence warmed even the coldest soul. Her father, Oberon, watched her with pride. He worked harder than ever, shaping clay under the sun, selling pots in distant villages, just to bring her small gifts. Bracelets carved from coconut shells, dresses sewn with colourful threads, even sweet fruits she had never tasted before. Every coin he earned was spent with one thought: Leona deserves joy. But happiness has a way of stirring the wind. One day, Oberon brought home a new wife. Her name was Kandari. She came from the far hills of Mbukiri, with skin smooth like stone and eyes that never smiled. Her beauty was sharp, almost dangerous. She arrived with a daughter, Noka, silent, watchful, and clever beyond her years. At first, Kandari acted kind. She called Leona her jewel and kissed her forehead. She braided her hair and cooked her favorite yam stew. The village women smiled and said, "Oberon is lucky. Kandari treats Leona like her own." But that was all a mask. Soon, the mask began to crack. Kandari saw how the villagers admired Leona, how her name floated in every praise. They spoke of her moonlit eyes, her golden spirit, her rare beauty. No one spoke of Kandari or Noka. The mother and daughter stood in Leona's shadow, and that shadow grew longer with each passing day. Kandari began to burn with jealousy. She envied the love Oberon had for his daughter, the way his eyes lit up when Leona entered the room. She hated how strangers offered Leona mangoes and how the birds still followed her wherever she went. One evening, Kandari watched Leona playing in the garden, the sunset painting her silver eyes in gold. Her lips tightened. That night, she sat alone by the fire, her fingers digging into her knees. "She is not mine," she muttered, "but she has everything." Her heart turned cold, her thoughts dark. And from that moment on, the woman who once pretended to love Leona began to twist her smiles into lies. Noka followed her mother's lead, mirroring the same bitterness. The girl who once offered Leona flowers now left thorns in her path. Their eyes, once pretending warmth, now watched her every step with secret hatred. And while Oberon remained blind to it all, still thinking he had built a happy family, the storm inside his home was quietly gathering, waiting for the day it would strike. Kandari was clever. She didn't attack Liona with open anger at first. Instead, she used whispers, slow, sharp words that slid into Oberon's ears like poison. "She's not like other girls," she would say as they sat by the fire. "She talks to trees. She sings when no one's there. Spirits follow her, Oberon. That's not normal. That's cursed." At first, Oberon laughed it off, brushing her words away like dust. But Kandari didn't stop. She repeated it again and again, every day, like a drumbeat in his mind. Oberon, now older and weary, began to change. The sparkle he once had for Liona started to fade. He grew quiet when she entered the room. He no longer brought her mangoes from the market or called her his little moonflower. Liona noticed. Her heart ached, but she said nothing. She only smiled and kept helping around the house, her voice still sweet, her hands still gentle. Then Kandari made her next move. She gave Liona's clothes to Noka, saying they looked better on her real daughter. She made Liona cook, clean, fetch water, and sleep near the cold kitchen floor. Noka, once silent, began to strut like a queen. She wore Liona's favorite blue dress and told villagers the songs Liona sang were hers. Oberon didn't question it. He was slipping deeper into Kandari's spell. And yet, Liona didn't fight. She didn't cry. She folded her pain into silence and whispered to the wind when no one listened. The villagers noticed the change. They missed the glow in her eyes, but they didn't know what happened behind the walls of that house. Until the fire. That night, the wind howled like an angry spirit. Liona had just returned from the well when she saw smoke rising. The kitchen was in flames. She dropped her pot and ran, barefoot, into the smoke, calling for help. Kandari stood outside, screaming, "She did this! She's the one! I saw her with fire in her hands." The neighbors rushed over. Oberon came running too, his face pale and panicked. Kandari pointed at Liona, her eyes wide with false fear. "She tried to burn us! I told you she was cursed!" Liona stood silent, covered in soot, her hands trembling. The fire was quickly put out, but the damage was done. Not to the house, but to the heart of a father who once believed his daughter could light up the world. Oberon didn't ask questions. He turned his back. From that night on, Liona was no longer a daughter in that home. And Kandari stood taller than ever, a wicked smile dancing in her eyes, knowing her plan was working exactly as she had hoped. The sun had just begun to dip behind the hills when Liona, tired and quiet, knelt by the hearth, sweeping ashes with her bare hands. Her fingers moved slowly, rhythmically, trying to hold on to a sense of peace in a house that had none. The crackling of the fire was the only sound, until the door slammed open like thunder. Kandari stormed in, her face twisted with fury. She had just returned from the market, where once again she'd overheard villagers praising Liona. "She's such a rare soul," they'd said. "Even now, with all she suffers, her heart is full of light." It was too much for Kandari to bear. "You think you're better than my daughter?" she shrieked, her voice shaking the walls. Liona looked up, confused, but before she could answer, Kandari lunged. Her eyes were wild, her hands trembling with rage. In a heartbeat, she grabbed a thick stick from the fire, its end burning red hot. The flames licked the air as she raised it high. "No one will look at you with admiration again," Kandari howled, and with terrifying force, she thrust the burning stick into Leona's face. A scream tore through the house, so sharp it seemed to stop time. The fire kissed her skin like the tongue of a demon. It burned through her beauty, her eyes, her light. Leona's scream turned into a choke, her body collapsing onto the ground as pain consumed her. She clutched her face, her cries now soft whimpers as blood and ash mixed beneath her. Then, stillness. She fell unconscious. The room was silent again, except for Kandari's heavy breathing and the fading crackle of the fire. She stared at Leona's still body, her face pale now, the madness in her eyes slowly settling into cold satisfaction. Outside, the sky darkened. No one knew what had just happened in that house. No one heard the scream that should have shaken the earth. And there, in the shadows of her own home, the girl with moonlit eyes lay broken, her vision stolen by the very fire she used to tend. Leona's eyes opened slowly, but all she saw was darkness. Deep, heavy, endless darkness. At first, she thought it was night, but when she reached for the light dancing on the walls, or the shadows that once comforted her, there was nothing. Only the sound of her shallow breathing and the throb of pain behind her burned eyes. She tried to call out, but her voice was weak. Her face felt swollen, torn, and hot. Tears tried to fall, but her eyes could no longer offer them. Outside, Kandari spun her web of lies with practiced ease. It was an accident, she told the villagers. The girl fell into the fire. I tried to save her. Her voice shook with fake sorrow. The villagers, who had long admired Liona, were stunned, but they trusted Oberon. And Oberon, he was crushed. His hands trembled as he sat by the fire, whispering, "Fate." It was fate. He never once looked deeper, never asked why. Liona, the girl once called Moon-Eyed, was now kept in the dark in every way. Kandari dragged her to a small, crumbling hut at the edge of their compound, a place even dogs avoided. That's where she dumped her. No blankets, no comfort, just a cracked mat and a bowl of cold scraps left at the door like she was nothing. Days passed, then weeks. Each morning, Noka would stand outside the hut and laugh. "So, you're blind now? Good. Maybe now the spirits will leave you." Her voice dripped with cruelty. "You look like a cursed witch, just like Mama said." Sometimes Kandari came too, to slap or spit at Liona, making sure her spirit broke a little more each time. But it didn't. Inside that darkness, Liona began to listen, not just with her ears, but with her heart. She heard the way the birds called differently at dawn. She felt the breeze change when someone approached. She could smell the difference between fresh rain and coming storms. And deep in her soul, she kept whispering, "This is not the end. The truth is still alive. I am still alive." She began to hum the songs she once sang as a child. She began to talk to the wind again, and in her dreams, her mother's voice would come, soft and warm, telling her, "Your eyes may be closed, but your light is not gone. Hold on, my child." And so Liona held on, blind, beaten and bruised, but never broken. The rain fell like tears from the heavens, heavy and cold. Wind screamed through the trees, and thunder rolled across the sky like a warning. But Liona didn't stop. Her hands scraped against the earth, knees bleeding as she crawled away from the only home she had ever known. Her face still burned. Her body was weak, but something deep inside her pushed her forward. Something stronger than fear, stronger than pain, hope. Behind her, no one noticed she was gone. Not Kandari, not Noka, not even Oberon. She crawled toward the one place everyone in Turika feared, the Forest of Orika. They called it cursed. They said spirits lived among the trees, ancient souls who whispered secrets and punished the wicked. No one dared go near it, but Liona, blind and broken, had nowhere else to go. Branches scratched her skin, thorns tore her clothes, but she kept moving. Each step felt like a journey through a nightmare. She had never entered Orika before, but her feet, guided by something unknown, found a path only her heart could see. Finally, her body gave out. Her fingers clutched the roots of an old tree, large and quiet, and strangely warm. She collapsed beneath it, chest heaving, rain soaking her hair. She didn't know this was the Nyako tree, one of the oldest and most sacred trees in the land, a tree the villagers once worshipped before they forgot the old ways. Liona placed a trembling hand on the trunk and whispered into the night, "Spirits of the forest, I have no eyes, but give me the sight of the soul. Let me see truth. Let me see justice." The wind stilled, the rain slowed, and somewhere deep in the woods, the earth began to hum. Liona's body went limp. Her lips parted as sleep took her. But it wasn't just sleep. Her breathing slowed, and her soul drifted into the quiet. The tree held her gently, as if it had been waiting for, as if the forest itself had been listening all along. And there, in the place where everyone feared to go, the blind girl with the moonlight heart found shelter. The trees swayed above her like guardians. The forest whispered her name, and the spirits, awakened by her pain and courage, began to stir. When Liona opened her eyes, she saw nothing but darkness. Yet something was different. Warmth wrapped around her like a soft blanket. She was no longer lying on cold dirt, but on a bed of moss and leaves. A gentle humming floated through the air, almost like a lullaby. Then she felt it, cool hands on her face, dabbing gently, and the smell of herbs, sharp and soothing. "You are safe now, child," came an old voice, calm and wise. "I am Majani, guardian of the forgotten." Liona's dry lips quivered. She tried to speak, but only a faint sound escaped. Majani placed a calming hand on her chest. "Don't speak yet. Let the forest finish what it has started. Over the next few days, Majani cared for her like a grandmother. She spoke in songs and whispered secrets to the fire. She crushed silverroot, squeezed owl's tears collected from ancient trees, and mixed them with lion's breath, the rare yellow flower that only bloomed after thunderstorms. With this potion, she gently bathed Liona's wounded eyes. Each day, the pain lessened. Each night, Liona dreamed, not of her old home or of darkness, but of stars, rivers, and glowing paths. Majani did not treat her like someone broken. She saw strength in Liona's silence, in the way she listened to the forest, in how she never cursed those who hurt her. Instead of mourning her lost sight, Majani helped her discover something greater. She taught Liona to hear what most people ignored: the sound of leaves dancing in the wind, the heartbeat of the earth beneath her feet, the truth hidden in silence. She trained her to walk without eyes, to feel space with her spirit. Liona could hear lies in a person's breath, could sense movement like ripples in water. Your blindness is a gift, Majani told her one night by the fire. You no longer see the world as it pretends to be. You see it as it truly is. Liona listened closely. The world had changed. She had changed. And deep inside, something was awakening. Not just strength, but purpose. Majani placed a hand over Leona's heart. One day, you will return, not to beg, not to cry, but to bring justice. Let the world see what they tried to bury. And with that, a spark ignited in Leona's soul. The girl who had once been left to rot in a dark hut was now learning to rise, with the power of the forest behind her and the fire of truth burning within. Years slipped by like leaves on a river. In the heart of the forest, Liona was no longer the broken girl who had crawled into the darkness. She had become something more, something powerful. Her face, once burned and scarred, now carried the marks like sacred paint. The pain had shaped her, but it did not define her. And her eyes, though still white and clouded, had started to change. At first it was just a flicker, a faint glow. Then slowly, she began to see not with sight, but with the soul. She could sense movements, feel the colors of emotions around her. People were no longer just bodies and voices. They were lights, burning in different shades. Some glowed gold, those were kind hearts. Others pulsed with red, sharp and angry. Those were hearts of hate. And in the quiet, she could hear the whispers of lies, the silence of secrets, the pulse of truth. Majani watched her with pride. You were born under the silver eclipse for a reason, she said one morning, as the sun peeked through the trees. Your gift was never just to see with your eyes. It was to see the truth others hide. She carved a staff from the oldest tree in the forest, a staff filled with stories, strength, and the spirit of the land. It hummed with energy when Liona touched it. It was more than wood. It was a guide, a protector, a symbol of her rebirth. Majani placed the staff in Leona's hands and whispered, You have learned to walk through the world blind, and yet you see more than anyone else. Now it is time. Go, child. Karma walks beside you. Go and reclaim what was stolen. Go and let them see who you truly are. Liona stood tall. Her long hair flowed behind her like a river. The scars on her face shimmered in the light like sacred war paint. She was not the frightened girl from the village anymore. She was the spirit of the forest, the daughter of truth, and the child of the moon. With each step out of Orika, the wind followed her like a friend. Birds flew ahead, announcing her return. Even the earth beneath her feet seemed to shift, ready to carry her forward. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. Everything she needed was inside her now. And as she walked toward Taraka, the village that once praised her, then cast her aside, her heart was calm, not for revenge, but for truth. Because this time, they would not see just a girl. They would see Liona, the one who sees beyond sight. The sun was just beginning to rise when Liona stepped into the village of Taraka. Her staff tapped gently against the ground, but her posture was proud, steady. She walked like she owned every stone beneath her feet. Her white eyes glowed faintly in the light, her scars now symbols of survival. Villagers paused in their chores, their jaws dropping. Is that Liona? Someone whispered. But she was blind. She walks like a queen. Whispers turned to stunned silence as the once-forgotten girl walked straight through the village square, past old neighbors who had turned their backs on her. Every step was calm, powerful, not fueled by revenge, but by truth. Kandari stood at her doorway, frozen. Noka dropped her bowl of fruit when she saw Liona approach. Their faces turned ghostly pale. She should be dead. Noka hissed through her teeth, backing away, but Liona simply smiled, a slow, calm, knowing smile. "The blind girl you threw away," she said clearly, "has returned, and now I see far more than I ever did." Her voice echoed in the air, sharp as thunder. The villagers gathered around her, drawn by something they couldn't explain. The energy around her was different, stronger, wiser. Without waiting for permission, Liona turned toward the chief's hut. Chief Ndabo, a man known for wisdom and fairness, stepped out, startled by the gathering. Liona bowed slightly. "I ask not for pity," she said. "I ask for truth." The chief frowned. "Speak, child." And she did. She told everything, how Kandari had burned her with fire, how Noka had laughed at her pain, how her father was tricked into believing lies. She told of the back hut, the scraps of food, the bruises, and the day she was left to rot. The crowd gasped. Mothers covered their mouths. Fathers clenched their fists. They remembered Liona's laughter, her kindness as a child, and now they were hearing the truth of her suffering. Chief Ndabo stood in silence for a moment. His face darkened. Then he turned to the guards. "Bring Kandari and Noka," he commanded, "to stand before the village. Let their truth face the light." Kandari tried to run. Noka screamed that it was all a lie, but it was too late. Karma had arrived, walking with quiet steps and glowing eyes, and the whole village would finally see what had been hidden for too long. The day of reckoning had finally arrived. The entire village of Orika gathered in the open square, murmuring with anticipation. They watched as Liona stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. The veil she wore was thick and dark, but she reached up, her fingers brushing it away slowly, revealing her white, shimmering eyes. The gasps of the crowd filled the air as the villagers stared in awe. Her eyes, once thought to be a curse, now glowed with a mystical light. The chief, Ndabo, stood tall, his voice resonating through the crowd. "We were blind, not her," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "We let wickedness grow in our homes, and now we must face the consequences." Liona stood proudly, her posture unyielding as she looked at the faces of the villagers. They were filled with guilt, sorrow, and astonishment. Every lie, every cruel word, every moment of silence had led to this. But Liona wasn't angry. She was no longer a victim. She was the truth that could not be ignored. Kandari, frantic and desperate, tried to escape the punishment she so richly deserved. Her heart raced as she turned to flee, but her foot slipped on the uneven ground. With a scream, she fell, tumbling straight into the fire pit, the very same one she had used to burn Liona's face. Her dress caught fire, and she cried out in agony, the flames licking at her skin as she screamed, exactly as Liona had done years ago. It was a moment of pure karmic justice, and the village watched in stunned silence as Kandari writhed in the flames she had once set. But it didn't end there. Noka, her daughter, stood frozen in fear, her earlier arrogance now replaced with terror. She tried to justify her actions, but the villagers weren't listening. The chief gave a cold command: "Strip her of her status and banish her to the mountain caves. There she shall have no name, no voice." Noka was dragged away, her cries echoing through the village, her fate sealed by her own cruelty. As for Liona, she stood tall and unwavering, the scars on her face now symbols of her strength, not shame. She was no longer the broken girl the village had forgotten. She was the keeper of wisdom, chosen by the spirits and the people to guide those who had suffered, to heal those who had been hurt. Her hut became a sanctuary, a place where the broken and the lost came to find peace. And every night, as the moonlight bathed the village in its soft glow, Liona stood at her window, gazing out. Her heart was at peace, and her scars no longer hurt. They were reminders of the journey she had walked, a journey that led her to a place of clarity and purpose. As Liona's journey comes to an end, we're reminded that no matter how dark life may seem, truth, justice, and karma always find a way to shine through. The cruelty that once blinded her couldn't stop her from finding the light. Liona's story is a powerful reminder that no matter how broken we are, we always have the strength to rise again, stronger than before. Her scars became symbols of her resilience, and in the end, she saw more clearly than anyone else ever could. If Liona's journey touched your heart, if you believe in the power of justice, truth, and inner strength, then don't let this story end here. Show your support for Liona and her triumph by liking this video. Share it with your friends and family so that the message of hope and resilience spreads far and wide. You never know who might need to hear it today. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel for more inspiring and heartwarming stories. Every story is a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's always light waiting to guide us. Thank you for watching and being part of this journey. Your support means the world. Keep believing in yourself, keep pushing forward, and remember, just like Liona, you can always rise, no matter what life throws at you.